Dear ladies and gentlemen, esteemed listeners and speakers, good afternoon or good morning, and welcome to the panel on integrated water resource management in the changing climate. A warm welcome also to all ambassadors of LAC region that are listening to us. These are the ambassadors of Brazil, Colombia, Peru, Paraguay, Mexico, Guatemala, Panama, Chile, and Argentina. My name is Alenka Mubi Zalaznik, and I come from LIMNOS Company for Applied Ecology, and I will be your host for the next 2 hours of the program, where we will shed a light on 2 comprehensive ongoing processes. One is integrated water resource management that covers many aspects from institutional setting, legislation, and ideally, it is about integrative coordination of practitioners and communities. The process is influenced by climate change, obviously, in some areas more than others. Today, we will talk about different aspects of water management, from international to local point of view. We will speak of problems and solutions. There's a number of drivers that put pressure on our water resources. Under the climate conditions, integrated water management must adapt with appropriate planning of water use, conservation, and water protection, resulting in better resilience on local level. I was asked to host this panel because I come from a company where we are committed to develop and market nature-based solutions for water treatment and water pollution mitigation. Our company was a pioneer in wetland technology in our country, particularly constructed wetlands for wastewater treatment in rural areas. Having a practical insight into how water is consumed instead of recycled, how natural elements for water management are not exploited for landscaping, agriculture, as drainage solutions, we now strive to work on projects and initiatives for sustainable local water management. This panel was formulated with the assistance of Global Water Partnership Network that our company hosts in Slovenia. Now, before giving the online floor to the speakers, I'd like to invite participants to actively engage in the discussion by putting your questions and thoughts to the Q&A button. After every presentation, we'll take a minute to add more details to the topic if you ask so. So let's start. To provide an outline of the integrated water management and how it is impacted by climate change, I will now ask Barbara Cencur-Curc from Faculty of Natural Sciences and Engineering from University of Ljubljana, and the president of Global Water Partnership Slovenia, to give an introduction of the topic. Barbara, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you, Alenka, for a nice introduction. So I would like to share screen. I've just
while you share your screen, I will just say that Barbara has over 20 years of experience in various fields of hydrogeology. And in the last year, she was engaged in projects tackling water management and climate change impacts, mainly on drinking water sources. Please, Barbara.
Thank you. Just a second. Okay. That I see you in another display. Yes. Okay. Good. So firstly, I would introduce myself. I'm Barbara Cencur-Curc. So I'm working at the university, and also now it's the second year that I'm chair of Global Water Partnership of Slovenia. This is the reason that I would like to introduce also Global Water Partnership, because I'm sure that not all of you know about this concept or partnership. Just let me see why. Okay. So Global Water Partnerships is a global action network which has over 3,000 partners. Partners are organizations, institutions, private organizations, faculties, and governmental institutes, and so on, in 179 countries. The goal of the Global Water Partnership is to be a network of such institutions and to provide knowledge and to build capacity to improve water management. So the major goal is integrated water resources management at all levels: global, regional, national, and local. So GWP, it's a network that would like to mobilize government and civil society in the commercial sector together to engage in within the integrated water resources management, which is very important, as we will see in the following presentation. The urgency of actions is actually that we have many threats and opportunities, also with mostly in the topic of water and climate change. So the climate is changing, and it is impacting also floods, water scarcity, droughts, and so on. So if we have then droughts and lower water levels in surface water or groundwater, then we have conflicts for water uses. Then we have hunger if we don't have enough water for drinking water or for food. So for irrigation, for crops and so on. So we have also many waterborne diseases. This is more global challenge. These are more global challenges. And because of lacking water, we have migrations and so on. So the opportunities in this case are actually infrastructures, a Paris Agreement for the climate change adaptation, Sendai framework for the disaster management, and so on. To also to encourage private sector to be involved, and so on. Technology, which are developed from the research institutions or other institutions. So we have then agenda for action, which we have to address the world water challenges, which are very important, mostly from the water resources management and climate change issues. Maybe first 3 goals of the Global Water Partnerships. So that this is actually United Nations goal, Sustainable Development Goal from the Agenda 2030. So we are focusing on the goal 6, which is about clean water and sanitation. And we have to provide water solutions to development challenges. So the very important is value of water, and also for this development. Also this year, World Water Day was focusing on value of water. So, and very important is also target 6.5, which is integrated water resources management. Actually, integrated water resources management includes everything what is happening in water. Very shortly. So, since we are challenging of the climate changes, we have to build a climate resilient society. So the development should be climate resilience. So we have to advance plan on national adaptation on climate change issues. So we have to facilitate access to climate finance, because we always need financing for resilience and adaptation strategies. So this is very important for water infrastructure as well. And the last goal is also transboundary cooperation. This is very important. So water is transboundary. Water doesn't care about boundaries. So we have to engage all countries. You will see then a very good example, or the best management practice of Sava River Basin, which is really very good example of cooperation in transboundary region of the Sava River with many countries. So this is this dialogue across political and also experts is very important. If we go to climate change and water, we have here 3 very important strategies or agendas. We mentioned already Sustainable Development Goals 2030 agenda. We have here separate our own goal number 13, SDG 13, which is about combating climate change and its impact. But we, as water expert, we are focusing more on SDG 6.5, which is that we have to implement integrated water resources management at all levels, including climate change issues. The water is connected to disaster risk reduction. We know that we have droughts when we have no water, we have floods when we have too much water. And from the measurements and also from the measurements and also from the events from the last 10-20 years, we can see that the number of droughts and floods is rising. So we have much more drought periods and flood periods in last 10 or 20 years than before. So this is very important. So this was also set in Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction, which is valid for 2015 to 2030. And then we have climate change Paris Agreement, which is which we all know. So yeah, so we have goals from which we would like to achieve. And concerning water, maybe it's very important that we foster adaptation initiatives which are related to fresh water, coastal water, and groundwater. And this should be the first priority also in nationally determined contribution, NDCs, so-called NDCs, which every country has to prepare. So this is according to the UN Water. So we have to act now and secure the water communities, economies, and ecosystems. And then we have consider water as part of the solution. So the water management should be improved, including sanitation. And we have to actually, as it will be also shown in the following by the following panelists, the natural-based solutions are one solutions of it, and so on, or the retaining water, water basins, and so on, or water accumulations, aquifer recharge from surface waters to store water, and so on. So we have to improve also management practices and ensure transboundary cooperation, because water is not taking into account borders. And also what we are doing in our country actually has an effect to another country or to the river's water quality or water quantity. So the discharge of this river can be diminished because we are having such maybe accumulations or water use and so on. So we have to rethink also in financing. If we go to the integrated water resources management, it's very complex because we have interfering of many aspects. So if we start maybe with waters, here we have all waters from surface to groundwater, wetlands, coastal, basin, scale, and so on. So we have to consider the whole water cycle. So from precipitation, evapotranspiration, surface runoff, groundwater runoff, and so on. The whole water cycle within the planet or the region and so on. So we have these waters which are available for human, and only a part of this water is available for human, because this is so-called blue water. We have green water, which is in plants and in the ecosystems, which is not available. And moreover, we have to consider what is the renewable water amount. And then on the other hand, we have water users. So environment is a key water users, which should be considered and not neglected. So when we are elaborating water balances, we have to consider this water for the environment. Otherwise, we overestimate what available water for human consumption. So water is very important for drinking water consumption, for irrigation, for industry, and so on. So we have many water users which should be balanced with the water availability. And this is still we actually know what is the situation now, but we have to be aware, and we have to always take into consideration the climate change. So the scenarios, how are the scenarios in the future, and how this ratio will change in the future. not only the ratio of the available water resources will change because of less or equal or more precipitation, but we are sure this is not so significant, but we are sure the temperature is rising uh, um, already from the measurements from the past 30 years. So if temperatures are rising, then also evapotranspiration is rising, then automatically recharge or surface for surface water or for groundwater is diminishing. So it is very important to integrate all disciplines, not only the natural sciences like hydrologists, geologists for hydrogeology, or for biologists for the ecosystems and so on. We have to integrate or also other disciplines for social sciences like also economy or social sciences for the acceptance for the society and so on. And policy, which is very important. Policy is creating actually the water framework in every country, which is the legislation. Then we have river basin management plans. In Europe, we have to make river basin management plans, which have to consider climate change. So all the measures which are actually in the river basin management plans has to be pointed out from the point of view of the climate changes. And very important is also to involve the stakeholders and civil society in this process. And also, not last but least, we have to focus on local, regional, and national level. So in national level, we have more general view of that, and then we have to focus also on local problems, because these are the real problems we are, or the people or the communities are focusing, or actually they are concerned with that. I have to mention also the Covenant of Mayors for Climate and Energy in Europe. So the mayors in Europe, they actually identified a problem which they have in the point of view of water in their municipalities because of the climate change and energy. Actually, they have to focus with that. They have to focus with the climate change, or they have to face with the climate change in their daily life, so-called. So in spatial planning, in actions they are doing, and so on. So therefore, a sustainable energy and climate action plan, this is SECAP, was established on municipality level, so on local level actually. So this SECAP plan is actually in two. It has two pillars. The first pillar is sustainable energy. Here we have baseline emission inventory. So this is inventory of emissions for the CO2 emissions and so on. And within this, we do the inventory, and after that we have to set up measures how to lower these emissions, like actually also isolated public buildings to focus on the traffic, to lower the traffic and foster more cycling or public transport and so on. And then the second pillar is climate action plan. So here we do risk and vulnerability assessment of the municipality on the water from the water resources point of view on the climate change. But actually in this SECAP plan, not only the water resources are focused on, but also the agriculture, tourism, traffic is mostly done already in the first part, sustainable energy, and then the forestry is also important, public water supply, and then forestry, say public water supply, water resources, agriculture, tourism. Yeah, that's more or less all sectors which are very important. And for all these sectors, this risk and vulnerability assessment for the climate change and climate change adaptation has been done. But very important is also this assessment for the water resources, for surface water, groundwater, and also drinking water sources and drinking water supply systems. Actually, also drinking water supply systems are vulnerable to climate changes. Temperature is rising, and then also the temperatures in pipelines are rising, and there is more the possibility is higher to have then microbiological pollution and so on. So this assessing is on the local level for the municipalities, and very important is the set up of the adaptation strategy. How we do this? We have the risk assessment is done from this. Actually, this is a scheme for this. So we have exposure. This is climate change. Okay, these are the old scenarios. This is the old graphic, but okay, now are different scenarios, but nevertheless, we have climate change scenarios which are impacting the water resources variables like water quantity and water quality. So we have here water availability as total runoff from the surface and groundwater, or surface and groundwater, and then we have also water demand. And then we have water quality for the surface and groundwater. Pollution load index we can calculate. And combining this, we can estimate the potential impact of climate or water resources. So we have here water scarcity. We calculate water with water exploitation index, and from the water quality we calculate water quality index. So this is then impact. And then for this impact, so if the water exploitation index is more than, I don't know, 0.4, 0.5, we have to establish measures. And we have and we can also see how the societies can adapt to these impacts. So this is then adaptive capacity. And mostly it's very hard to evaluate this, but we are using GDP. So the hypothesis is that low GDP of countries or also municipalities is actually the adaptation capacity is then lower. And then the importance of natural systems, ecosystem services, how many natural systems are present in the area which can buffer this impact on the climate change on water resources. So ecosystem services are very important. And then combining impact and adaptive capacity, we get then vulnerability of the water resources to the climate change. And we are evaluating this for the reference period and for the future period. And the difference of the vulnerability in these periods, then we have risk for this climate change. So this will be shortly for the introduction to today's discussion. Thank you very much for your attention. Oops.
Thank you, Barbara. This was now really a presentation of all the topics, when the things and when the models are perfect. But now we will see the real world. Our next introductory speaker is Alex Guerra Nuriega, Director of Climate Change Institute from Guatemala. He will give us a regional perspective and provide some key messages on the lack of integrated water management and severity of climate change impacts in these conditions. Alex, do we hear each other well? Yes,
I think so.
Oh, perfectly. I'm so glad. Let's share the presentation. While I say that Alex is a researcher in integrated water management and climate change, his work is directly focused on applied research and addressing the local scale challenges posed by climate change in both Guatemala and El Salvador. And please, Alex, the word is yours.
Thank you very much. I feel honored to be able to present. Some of the data will be focused in general in Latin America and the Caribbean, as the focus of this whole week is. And in some of some parts I'm going to focus on Central America alone. So there will be a combination of perspectives, but I think they will help me illustrate the situation. Let me just set my clock so that I don't take more time than I was giving. When we look at the global scale, there is this map now from 10 years ago indicating water stress. And what is shown is the percentage of each country, the land area, that is under water stress. So when we look at Central America, it's all yellow. So it's one of the regions where a very low percentage of the land is subject to water stress. So we have that advantage, if you like. If you look at the whole of Latin America and the Caribbean, then the picture changes a little bit, with Mexico and Chile with a significant percentage of their territories under water stress. And then there are some differences also. Argentina, Bolivia, Peru have some percentages too. That's the orange color you see on the map. So there is a difference there. The situation varies from country to country, but some countries are with that advantage. When we look, and this is a little bit older data, but it will help us see, one of the points is Latin America and the Caribbean are one of the richest regions of the world in terms of water resources. And this is shown, this is from one of the UNESCO water assessment reports. They come every year, as you probably know. So as you can see there on the screen, Latin America has the highest levels of renewable water resources, and it's the second lowest extractions. As you see in the last column, only 1.9% of the available resources are extracted. And then just to have a look at how much of the extractions is used for agriculture, industry, or urban usage, then of course, as it's the norm worldwide, 71% is used for agriculture. Is the biggest user of water around the world. In industrial parts, this is significantly lower because their water is used mostly for industry, which is the case in North America and Europe. But then the rest of the world, we have more or less the same levels. Around 70 to 80% of the water is used for agriculture. But this is one of my arguments is, well, I want to show you that Latin America is rich in terms of water resources. However, if you look at the issues that we still have thousands of homes without access to water and sanitation. So we are not complying with the human right to water in the region. We have constant climate-related impacts, either through droughts, flooding, landslides, and this you can see from year to year. I will illustrate a couple of cases later on. There is poor water quality, and that's being exacerbated. And there are also conflicts. There are social conflicts over the use of water. So despite this wealth in water resources, we have all these issues. And that's precisely, and that's the other point of the argument I want to make, it's because of the lack of integrated water resource management. And what the map shows is the situation of countries. This is from an assessment that GWP helped conduct in 2017. It was published in 2018. Right now, there is a new assessment coming up this year. But these are the results just from 3 years ago, where you see the level of implementation of integrated water resource management. And as you can see in the Latin American and Caribbean region, except for Cuba and Brazil, which have medium high to high levels of implementation, the rest of countries, the levels are medium low and low in many cases. You can compare it to the rest of the world. But so there are, that explains a little bit why, in spite of having abundant resources, we still have issues related to water. Just to show you what those colors and those levels of implementation mean, the baseline, you can read there probably as I am speaking, that for some countries in the LAC region, they have institutionalized most elements of IWRM, but in some countries they have started developing elements, but it is largely lacking in implementation, and that's what's expected for 2030, the level of compliance with the 2030 agenda. Basically, if significant action is not taken soon or urgently, we're not going to meet what we set out to meet in the ODS. This is again data from these assessments, where you can see again that Latin America and the Caribbean has the lowest average score with 35% in implementation. You see, it's very similar to Central and Southern Asia, but it's the lowest when you look at the regions around the world. At the global level, we're not doing too well. It's only 49 out of 100 in terms of implementation. But Latin America and the Caribbean, again, have, you see here what the map was showing us earlier, that many countries have low to medium-low levels of implementation. And that explains to a large extent the problems that we face and the challenges. This is a report from the UN, the CEPAL. I'm sorry, I can't remember what CEPAL stands for, but they do a lot of economic assessments in Latin America. So there is this publication that outlines the challenges for water security, and that's another central concept, together with everything that Barbara explained. I think it was a brilliant presentation of the whole concept of water, the interlinkages with climate and with disaster reduction. I think it was, you can see she comes from academia. I enjoyed it very much, her talk. But this concept of water security is very important around the world. And here you can see the outline of the main challenges for the Latin American, the Caribbean region. So in general, access to water and sanitation, as I was saying, we need to catch up because we are lagging behind in some countries more than in others. The issue of economic development and what that means for humid areas and also for semi-arid areas, the conservation of water bodies for environmental purposes, but also as sources of water for population. And then, of course, there are 5 topics there. Wastewater treatment is a big issue, largely in Latin America. And then, of course, the protection of the population against flooding, which is the main, which is the hazard that accounts for most of the economic and other damages around the world, but certainly in the region, and that is only increasing. So some of the components of the integrated water resource management, you see here this list: extraction, transportation or conduction of water, distribution, treatment before and after it is being used, administration at different levels, river basin management, information generation and on supply and demand, and that's crucial for management of any resource, and water is not, and very importantly, storage. And that's what happens in our region. In some months of the year, we have a lot of rainfall. It causes problems because there is too much. And then in other months, we have very little. So what we need is to store it in the soil, in the natural, so to boost the natural capacity of the river basins to store the water, but also we need gray infrastructure to do it, just like Europe has done for many years and provided very, very excellent results. Of course, there's this debate about renaturalizing the environment, but certainly infrastructure has played a vital role in managing water resources. And then, of course, some of the aspects that Barbara was mentioning, the water laws. for example, Guatemala and El Salvador don't have a water law, and that makes it very, very hard to govern the resource. We need national plans, participation from all stakeholders, financing, of course. Nothing happens if there is no finance, there is no funding to do things. And then the last part is climate change. This is a very, very broadly what's happened. That's on the left side in terms of temperature has gone up in most of the world, even more in some areas than in others. And what's expected for the future is higher temperature, mainly on land than in the ocean. And so that's for certain. Just the extent of that temperature increase is what we are not sure about, but certainly that will go faster than we've experienced in the last 100 years. There's more uncertainty in terms of water resources. It's gone down in some places, it's gone up in other places, causing problems in both. And what's expected for the future in general is a reduction of rainfall in Central America, Caribbean, and northern South America, which could have an impact also in the Amazon region. And then in the Southern Cone, there might be different outcomes that we expect from climate change. But this is so the challenges that we have are very, very big. And here you see the situation in Mexico and Central America, where every line that you see here on the left, I'm sorry, shows you the trajectory of a storm or a hurricane. And so we face these events every year. And we had the extreme case last year that we faced 2 hurricanes in very, very high categories within 2 weeks. We had ETA, and then 2 weeks after we had Iota, almost following the same path. And it caused a lot of destruction in places that had already been impacted in the previous event. And so this is what we have to face year on year. There's the dry corridor in Central America. Here you see from Guatemala to northern Costa Rica. And that's also it's been studying. There is no data, unfortunately, it's very scarce data, but a lot of people are studying the effects of this on migration to the US, for example, pushing people out of their farms. And so that's another event. And just to finish, a couple of local examples of what is being done with this very difficult situation in terms of governance and the challenges. In southern Guatemala, for example, this roundtable started happening with local authorities, water users, farmers, agreeing on how to use the resource. And this is where the Climate Change Institute, where I work, has played a vital role in providing information on a daily basis to help coordinate the use of water. That's very, very successful in the past 5 years. It's certainly helped cope with water scarcity in southern Guatemala, with benefits for the environment and for people. And lastly, actions at the watershed or the river basin management, the low sugarcane, banana producers, providing funding to have actions in the upper part of the basins, helping communities with forestry programs, implementing soil conservation practices. And so there's a set of actions on the ground at different scales to help build resilience. And the last thing is water research and actions are vital. And this is something that our institute has been doing. You see here this map of different topics around water that we've been working on. And we do think that integrated water management is the backbone of adaptation to climate change. And that's why we need to work on all of these topics. And that's what I wanted to share with you, and looking forward to the other presentations. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex, really, for this very nice presentation. And I think that we now have the theory and the practice, and we're looking forward to see the next panelists, because each and every one of them will shed more light in different aspects that you have both been mentioning so far. There are still no questions in the questions and answer sections, so the participants are warmly invited to comment and to ask questions. Thank you, Alex, again. We are now ready to listen to the speakers that will present, as I've mentioned, the different aspects. And we shall start with a good case of transboundary water management established in the Sava River Basin. I invite Mr. Samo Grošelj from the International Sava River Basin Commission to share his screen. Samo, are you ready to speak?
Yes.
Oh, perfect. While you are sharing your screen, I would just like to say that Samo is responsible for water and ecosystems protection at the Secretariat, and will talk about all aspects of water management in their domain, like from the textbook, I would say. Right, Samo?
Yes, thank you. I would like to present the Transboundary Water Management Cooperation in the Sava River Basin. I'm Deputy Secretary for the Protection of Water and Aquatic Ecosystem at the International Sava River Basin Commission. Here on this slide, you can see the basic facts about us, about the Sava River Basin. It is shared by 4 countries, Slovenia, Croatia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Serbia, and Montenegro. And the area of the basin is nearly 100 square kilometers. It is the second larger Danube sub-basin. The average flows at the mouth in Belgrade is 1.7 thousand cubic meters per second, and it is the largest Danube tributary. The river length is nearly 1,000 kilometers, and half of it is navigable. In the area lives about 9 million inhabitants. On the right side, you can see the location of the Sava River Basin in Europe, and on the larger, on the smaller scale, also you can see the Sava River Basin itself. Well, what is the background for the cooperation? The background for the cooperation is actually the Sava River Basin, because of the high environmental and social economic value. Well, I can say that there is a relatively low degree of human intervention, one of the lowest in the Europe. But anyway, there is a need and obligation for the environmental protection on one hand, but on the other hand, there is a need for the economic development. So the balanced approach is needed to use the potential on one hand, and also to preserve the nature on the other hand. Well, the legal background for the cooperation in our basin is the framework agreement on the Sava River Basin, and the main objectives of the agreement is the sustainable development of the region, which is based on the Transboundary Water Cooperation. And the particular objective are establishment of the sustainable water management, the hazard management because of the floods, droughts, accidents, and also the establishment of the international regime of navigation. The implementation body is the International Sava River Basin, which is consists of 4 member countries, and with Montenegro we have signed the MOU. And we at the Secretariat, we are actually the administrative body of the International Sava River Basin Commission. Below the framework agreement, there are protocols which regulates particular issues. Until now, there are 4 protocols which are in force in our basin. The first one is for the navigation regime. The second is the prevention of water pollution caused by navigation, for flood protection and sediment management. The protocol on emergency situation is prepared, and the final harmonization is expected, while the protocol on transboundary impact has been developed, but through the years the parties to the framework agreement decided that protocol such is not needed. The scope of our work is the development of the management plans, like river-based management plan, flood risk, sediment management plan, and so on. Establishment of the integrated system, especially those for the information and data exchange. Here, I would like to point out two systems which has already been established and are maintained. This is SAVA Hydrological Information System and SAVA Geographical Information System. We work on the economic activities like development of the navigation and the development of the river tourism, and also on harmonization of different policies, guidelines, and the protocols. In the field of river basin management, we have, of course, when I talked about the SAVA Commission, I always think about the parties, not about the SAVA Commission as an organization. But we coordinated the development of the first SAVA River Basin Management Plan, which was approved in 2014, where the water status was assessed, the vision and management objectives were set, the program of measures were developed, and also there are chapters on the integration of water protection with other developments, and also the climate change has been mentioned. We are now in the process in the second river basin management planning cycle, where the second SAVA river basin analysis has been developed. The significant water management issues were defined, and the outline of the second SAVA river basin management has been developed. And now the data collection for the second SAVA RBM plan are all ongoing, and we hope that until summer we will have the draft plan prepared for the consultation with the stakeholders. In the field of flood management, which is covered with the protocol, the flood risk management plan has been already developed with set up common objectives and of manage the flood risk and ensure coordinated approach to flood risk management. We are very proud on this establishment of the flood forecasting and warning system as a common flood forecasting platform as added value to existing national system. And I think that this system is nearly unique in Europe. So regarding the climate change, well, here I would like to, in this field, I would like to mention three projects. The first one has been coordinated with the World Bank, and we cooperate with the with data and information. This is Water and Climate Adaptation Plan. Then the Joint Research Center has developed the SAVA case study within the Danube Water Nexus project. And this was also the basis for the development of outline of the climate change adaptation strategy and priority measures, which has already also been developed. Where we are very, in our work, we always involve the stakeholder through the provision of information, through the trainings, courses, through the publications like SAVA Newsflash, and through the SAVA Days celebration. 1st of June is celebrated as a SAVA Day, and well, and it is celebrated with different events organized by the SAVA Commission or by the countries. The consultation goes through the workshops and meetings with the stakeholders. We have provided a consultation process within the development of river basin management plan, flood risk management plan, also establishment of those system and plans I have already mentioned. While the active involvement is very important for the implementation of the programs and project, and we involve the stakeholders through the meeting of the parties, through the sessions of the SAVA Commission and the meeting of the expert groups. Well, I would like to mention also that we involved in our activities also the youth through the youth parliament of the Sava River Basin, and here you can see the sign of the Sava Youth Parliament and picture of one event which was organized in this regard. So I have provided the links in my presentation, and you are also invited to contact us through our web page, and you can contact us or write to us, and so on, and all the documents are available here. Thank you.
Thank you, Samo, indeed, for this very good practice, where we could see that a dedicated administrator and clear protocols manages the data and communication and has an impact. Samo will later on come with a question, but first I would like to turn again our heads to the LAC region, this time to the Caribbean, where we have with us Adrian Cashman, who will tell us more on vulnerability to the climate change there. Adrian, we can see each other, right?
Yes, indeed.
Okay, perfect.
And I'm going to share my screen with you.
Exactly. And I will say that you have over 35 years of experience in the water sector, and that you have worked across the Caribbean and with several international and regional organizations on water and climate related matters. So we are eager to hear your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. I trust that you can see my screen.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm going to offer a reflection on some of the integrated water management challenges in the Caribbean, and I've sort of pitched it at the level of, do we have a glass that is half full or one that is half empty? So some of the things that have been mentioned earlier about Latin America and the Caribbean, I'm going to try and drill down into the Caribbean experience. But before I do that, I'd like to just orientate people a little bit about the Caribbean by giving a quick overview and some things that may not come immediately to mind. First of all, we have a population of 44 million and an area of 2.75 million square kilometers. Now that's about the same size as Australia, and in fact double the population of Australia. The big difference, if you haven't already noticed it, is that most of the Caribbean is actually water, whereas Australia is obviously land. We have a multiple of languages in the Caribbean, Spanish and English being the two predominant ones, but also with French, Dutch, and depending on which country, various versions of Creole or Patois. One of the things that makes integration quite difficult is the difference between the Spanish-speaking Caribbean and the English-speaking Caribbean. So what I will be focusing on mainly is our experience in the English-speaking Caribbean. And we also have a very peculiar idea of what we call the Caribbean, the English-speaking Caribbean, because we include Belize, which is part of or located in Central America. And we also include Guyana and Suriname, which are on the mainland of Latin America or South America. So, you know, we're not making life exactly easy for ourselves in trying to define what we mean by a region. We do have a number of regional organizations which provide a degree of integration and coordination. We have CARICOM, which is the Caribbean Community. We have a number of others, including the Association of Caribbean States, the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States as well. Some of these regional or sub-regional organizations are more involved in water management or in promoting water management than others. So what I want to do is run through the spectrum. So I'm starting with the ugly. What is ugly about the Caribbean in the situation that we find ourselves in, which has a direct impact on the way we manage our water resources and provide water services. First of all, as was illustrated with the hurricane pathways, we are very vulnerable to natural disasters, including hurricanes and storm damage. And many times, as you can see from the table down on the bottom there, the loss and damages to a country from the impact of a natural disaster, such as a hurricane, can equal or exceed a country's GDP. Now, let me put that into some sort of perspective, that when Hurricane Katrina, which I'm sure that we can all remember, impacted the United States of America, New Orleans, the damage that it caused there was the equivalent of 1% of the US's GDP, whereas the hurricanes that have recently impacted Dominica, some of them were up to 200% of GDP. And we also seem to see an increase in the number of weather and climate hazards occurring in each year. And that's shown in that diagram there. What it means is, in terms of responses, is that we tend to be, in the words of one report, in a permanent state of repair mode. The other thing that is coming more and more to the fore is the vulnerability to climate change. And the two are very, very much interlinked with each other. The increases in temperature and decreases in rainfall, which have already been mentioned. What we are finding, though, is the increases in temperature driving increases in evapotranspiration rates are having a more impact than, say, changes in rainfall. But we are not just seeing decreases in rainfall, we are seeing changes in rainfall patterns. So changes in seasonality and changes in intensity of rainfall events. And all of this does have an impact in the way that you're going to manage your water resources. So putting it very, very bluntly, in the Caribbean, we live in a bad neighborhood. Natural disasters are having both a short and long-term impact, and that has been brought home in the last 2 weeks by the eruption of La Soufrière volcano on the island of St. Vincent, which has impacted not just that country directly, but through ash falls throughout the Caribbean, has impacted other islands as well, going as far north as Antigua and down to Grenada in the south there. And that has impacted water resources, how water resources are used and supplied, both in St. Vincent itself with the ash falls, but also in Barbados, which is some 150 kilometers away. The ash falls, although not affecting the water resources, have impacted the consumption of water as we try to clean up. So these are some of the knock-on effects that we are getting there. Some of that's the ugly part of it. Some of the things that we are not doing very well in the region include poorly developed governance structures. And I'm picking out two particular aspects here. Many water utilities are still responsible for water resources management. And that does lead to a number of conflicts and issues. And the other one is that many of our water utilities are essentially an extension of the government system, and therefore subject to fairly high degrees of political control. I'm not going to be undiplomatic to go too much into some of the politics of this, but it won't take an awful lot of imagination to get what I'm talking about. There is also an absence of medium to long-term planning. And part of that is due to the impact that we have of these recurring hazard events that we are constantly trying to keep up to almost stay where we are. So the putting the pressure on to look at long-term planning that would optimize the way we use our resources has fallen into the background, and deficits in data and information that are needed for planning as well. The other thing that is absolutely crippling many nations in the Caribbean is the high levels of non-revenue water. And that is a particular issue because it places additional strains on water resources. And the other one is low levels of wastewater treatment. We heard about water quality issues, but a lot of our water, wastewater, receives minimal treatment and goes into the marine environment. Now, I've shared a fairly dismal picture there, but I wanted to come to the end of this short presentation with some of the things that we are actually doing very well at. And the one is that we do have well-performing and improving water utilities. The Belize Water Services, for example, is one of our standout water utilities in the region. And it's one that we encourage South-South cooperation, where they share their experiences with other utilities in the region as well. There are also improvements in governance. Some of this is being driven by internal forces in countries. Others is being driven by, if you like, external forces amongst the international financing community. And I would pick out in particular Jamaica as being a really good example of the improvements and the steps that have been taken to improve water governance. I know Jamaica sometimes has a bad reputation in the international community, but certainly when it comes to water management, I think Jamaica is doing a remarkably good job in leading the way, and others that are following, that are implementing, St. Lucia and Grenada. At a regional coordination level, I'm a member of Global Water Partnership. We have with other partners for at least the last 15 years been hosting an annual high-level forum for ministers with responsibility for water to try to increase the awareness amongst the political directorate of the importance of water management and the things that need to be doing. And we're seeing the benefits of this in the last 2 years. We've come up with a regional strategic action plan, which has been underwritten by ministers, and which is providing us with a template where we can coordinate our actions. And part of this is down to regional leadership on the part of bodies like Global Water Partnership Caribbean and other regional bodies as well. And so I just want to finish with that. I do have some talking points if people for later, but I'll just leave it at that, just to say, in summing up, there are some very ugly things around that are affecting our ability to manage water resources in an integrated way. There are some continuing bad practices, but there are also good practices to which the countries around the Caribbean are aspiring. So I will stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian. I'm so happy that you finalized, you finished your presentation with a good case, with a praise to Jamaica. It is so important to have a good example in the region that everybody can look up to. It's a very good start. Now let's have, thank you, Adrian, for this. I will come back with, you will have the opportunity to ask those two questions that I know you have prepared. And now let's have a science perspective on water. I have with us Tina Iliršek from National Institute of Biology from Slovenia, who is specializing on a particularly invisible but extremely relevant aspect of water, its quality. She will reveal problems of cyanobacteria in surface waters. That is an issue, as we know, in both regions. Right, Tina? Are you here with us?
Yeah, I
perfect.
try to share.
Very nice.
This
Hello, please share your screen. Tina's main research field is ecology of algae and cyanobacteria, and she's been working on this topic for over 15 years. Thank you very much, Tina. Please, the word is yours.
Okay. Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for this opportunity. I will divide this short talk only on 2 sections. I will have 2 slides about what is a problem and 3 slides about what we can do about it. Well, the problem is that everything we do with the environment reflects in the health of our waters. So the study of environmental threats in waters is very important for humans as well for environments, for waters. And the primary producers in those waters, this is mainly algae and cyanobacteria, are essential because of oxygen production as they represent the basis of water food webs. But on the other hand, they can be also toxic. Because of human actions, mainly eutrophication and climate changes, we are witnessing higher frequency of these harmful blooms in surface waters. It's a natural thing, but the frequency increases. Under the microscope, we can identify potentially toxic cyanobacteria, and they produce a lot of different secondary metabolites, and one group of them is called toxins because they are toxic to mammalian cells. And they can be as toxic as toxin from Amanita phalloides or cobra toxin, so they are very toxic. And I must say that cyanobacterial blooms are relevant problem globally, so it's not just a Slovenian thing. In fact, first publications about acute intoxication with cyanotoxins come from Brazil. So traditional monitoring morphology-based methods for cyanobacterial detections have many limitations. We need long time and specialized experts. There is a lack of good identification keys, and therefore we have subjective taxonomic determination. There are constant changes in taxonomy names because of the molecular biology, resulting in many synonyms. And also there are frequently overlooked phycospecies, rare species, and survival forms. And what can we do about it? There are new high throughput molecular methods that can avoid many of these problems and can drastically reduce the time needed for analysis of large samples. And we have invested the energy into this field, and we have extracted the environmental DNA from water samples, and then we have optimized molecular detection methods for cyanotoxin genes. So we were only detecting the potential, the positivity of our waters where the cyanobacteria can be found. And now we are developing early warning system of cyanotoxic potential. With molecular methods, we have detected environmentally toxic planktic and benthic cyanobacteria. Planktic are those who are in water column, and benthic are those who are attached to some surface. It can be a rock or something else. And it was believed that the toxins are accumulated only in planktic blooms, but in the last decades or so, we have many publications about benthic cyanobacteria after a few dogs dropped dead after leaking these rocks with toxic cyanobacteria. And so now we know that we must focus also on benthic cyanobacteria. We have already published article about this, and as you can see on this picture, there are sometimes the different species are very similar. For instance, these dots on picture D, and this dot on picture E, and this dot on picture F, they are totally different species, and it's really hard to distinguish under the microscope. So, as I said, we invest a lot of our energy into molecular methods to overcome these doubts, which species is this. And our focus now is on developing early warning system. For instance, this is our famous Lake Bled with island on the middle, and when such blooms occur, this scarlet thing is cyanobacterial bloom. When such massive blooms occur, it's too late. It's too late for acting because the harm is already done, and you need a few years to get things back to normal. So we are seeking early warning system to act when it's still possible. So to sort of that we can predict in advance, and the authorities could do something before it happens, like in this massive manner. We also spread our knowledge about this toxic threat to Slovenia, in Slovenia to wider public. We have made 2 YouTube video clips. One is in Slovene and one is in English. And we are also developing citizen science project. This is a platform where citizens could upload a photo from suspicious lakes and rivers, and we could then sample, analyze, and report about the tactic cyanotoxic potential, and we could then make some thoughts on the map, so the people would know where there is a toxic potential or not. Our research was supported by many parts, and if you wish for more information, please write to me, and I'm thank you again for inviting me and for listening. Thanks.
Thank you, Tina. This was a very important message that you gave in the end. You are available for cooperation. This is a shared problem. And I particularly like the idea of this citizen science. This is also something that can involve us all. And unfortunately, Lake Bled is turning red again, as I've seen from some comments of visitors just last week. So this is a problem of a massive size for some areas. I would like to take this opportunity, and I know that we have received question this time in the chat room. Barbara, can you just ask the question in vivo, please?
I have I cannot pose a question in question and answers. I was trying to do that, but I'm not able to do it. I have a question for Mr. Cashman, because we have severe problems, or yeah, I can say severe problems with our governmental bodies concerning water. Actually, they do not communicate a lot, or not at all, with expert community. So what are your experiences in engaging politicians and governmental bodies in CC adaptation issues concerning waters? You mentioned in your last slide of your talk that you have several initiatives with these bodies, and I don't know, are they willing to listen, or they just notice that you're doing something and nothing happens, because this is the case in Slovenia?
Well, now I'm going to have to be very careful how I answer this question. The Caribbean, despite the 44 million, is a very small place. It really does depend on the country, and I'll give you the best example. In Jamaica, the politicians there, the political directorate, are very much tuned in to not just climate change, but the impacts of climate change on water and water management. This is actually very important. And to tell you how seriously they take it is that the ministry responsible for water management not only has a water policy and monitoring unit within it, but the minister with overall responsibility for that ministry is the Prime Minister. So in Jamaica, they take it really seriously. In other countries, it's not take, I would say they pay lip service to, to climate change. They come along to these high-level forums. They're paid for to come there, and they enjoy their couple of days there, and they listen. But when you look at the follow-up actions, those follow-up actions at the national level are really not there. And it is a question about how really do you get inside the skin of a politician to make them understand. And I've said recently to a colleague that we have to think like water we have to act like water professionals, but in our communication, we have to think like politicians. There. So it very much depends on where you're, and I'm just going to, as I say, just give the good example and really not get drawn into all the other bad examples that there are. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm glad that there are also good examples.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you very much for this intervention. And next, I would like to present another water expert, Ms. Natasha Tanasova from Faculty of Civil and Geodetic Engineering from University of Ljubljana, who will talk about nature-based solutions in urban areas focused to water management. Natasha, I see you are ready. Please share your screen. Natasha's research is focused on sustainable urban water use, and I know she's a keen supporter of water reuse. Natasha, please.
Thank you, Alenka, for this introduction. Indeed, my research goes into development of water use systems. However, my research interests are quite broad, starting from modeling of water quality in aquatic ecosystems. But lately, I'm more focused into cities and how to implement circular management of resources in cities. So let's see. So I'm also involved in two very interesting collaborative projects that I would like to introduce, not only introduce them to you during this talk, but also to invite you to collaborate. But let's start first. Why cities? Cities are part of river basins, and they are many times the cause of much of the problems that we've heard about today. And we know that the urbanization is growing. People like to live in cities, but this comes at a cost. And the cost is mostly due to, I would say, improper management of resources. And the impact of cities is mostly due to two basic points. And the first point is the increased urbanization and increased impervious areas. They interfere severely into the natural water cycle. We know that in nature, 80% of the precipitation is subject to infiltration, and less than 20% turns into surface runoff, while in cities, this is vice versa. So this causes a lot of urban runoff. And what we normally do is we put this urban runoff into sewer pipes, and then the water leaves the city very fast, basically in pipes. So, and the other point that is problematic in cities is the ever-growing demand for resources. So the major demand for water, for food, and for energy comes from cities. We may claim here that the biggest consumer of water is agriculture, but agriculture produces food, and the food is demanded by cities. So this, as you can see, this causes quite a lot of problems because of the way we manage resources. And the way we manage resources in cities is typically linear. So we take the food, we take the water, we turn it into waste, then we process this waste somehow by using energy and certain methods, and then we discharge it to the environment. So as opposed to this, circular management of resources should be used to mitigate these problems. And circular management of resources basically means that we reduce the import of resources, and at the same time, we reduce the export of waste in cities. This means that we basically treat wastewater as a resource, not as a waste, as a resource of water, as a resource of nutrients, as a resource of energy, as a matter of fact. So, but there are challenges. There are challenges that cities are facing to shift to this circular management of resources. And we have identified somehow 7 challenges. And the first challenge is how to implement measures to restore and maintain the natural water cycle, how to treat water so that it can be recovered and reused, how to recover nutrients, how to recover materials and reuse them, how to produce food and biomass from local resources in the city, how to provide energy efficiency and recovery, and finally, how to recover our building systems. These are the 7 challenges that we have worked in within one of these projects that I mentioned in the beginning. And we claim that nature-based solutions can be used to address these challenges, not completely, but to some extent. And also, at the same time, while addressing these challenges, they can provide also multiple co-benefits. And these co-benefits are bringing nature to cities and also restore urban ecosystem services. When we talk about nature-based solutions for urban water management, I'm part of a group that is developing some kind of classification and clustering of these nature-based solutions into nature-based solution units so that it can be easier implemented and used in management purposes. And this clustering of nature-based solution units is again into 7 parts. And so we have nature-based solution units for rainwater management, for vertical greening systems and green roofs, remediation, treatment and recovery, river restoration, soil and water bioengineering, public green space, and food and biomass production. All these units are, each of these groups have a number of nature-based solution units. And what is important to say is that these units are connected between each other and they have multiple functions. So here, for example, on this picture, we can see a good practice on how to drain a parking space. So instead of draining this water into sewer system here, as you see, this is a part of the sewer system, and taking it to a wastewater treatment plant or directly to a water body, we can build infiltration basins where the water, the rainwater, filtrates and treats, and then it is safe to be infiltrated to the groundwater. So it's kind of building a sort of a sponge city. So that is that increases its capacity for infiltration. This is one of the many units for rainwater management. Additionally, we have units for water retention, water detention, and rain gardens, for example, and so on. So then we have a set of units for vertical greening and green roofs. We all know about green walls and green roofs. However, in the context of circular management of resources, here we talk about multifunctions. So building green walls and irrigating them with tap water is basically harmful, I would say. It's better not to do green walls than to build green walls and irrigate them with tap water. What we see here on this picture is basically constructed wetland. It's a treatment plant. So this wall is treating gray water, which is water from the showers and hand wash basins. So all the water apart from the toilet water. So it is taken here, and we have here horizontal flow. And while flowing here, the water is being treated. The nutrients in the wastewater are feeding the plants. So you can imagine we have a green wall that is good for the air quality, then it is treating gray water. And if we put this green wall on the outside facade, it can act as an insulation element. Well, we can also add productive plants, and we can also have food. So this is the multifunctionality of nature-based solutions that can be used for not just for water management, but for resources management in city. So I would like to present you so there is a lot of research going on around the globe in nature-based solutions for circular management of resources. So I would like to present you two such projects. So the first one that I also co-chair is called Nature-Based Solutions for Creating Resourceful Circular Cities. This is a cost action. It's a program funded by the European Union, and these projects fund only networking. So our network is not research, but just networking. So our network is quite big in this area. So it involves all eligible cost countries. And on top of that, we have also other non-EU countries like Iceland, Norway, and Switzerland. And we also have several observers from around the globe. This cost action has 4 working groups, and these working groups are built environment, which deals with nature-based solutions that are implemented in the built environment, like we saw the green wall. Then we have a working group dealing with urban water management with nature-based solutions. We have a working group dealing with resource recovery from wastewater, and we have a working group dealing with urban farming. The last working group, which is transformation tools, is responsible to make the connections between these two. So this is the way how we try to implement sort of cross-sectoral management of resources. And although this is a topic here where water is most important, but water is the center for all resources management. Everything depends on water, and this is how it is reflected also in this work. There will be quite some outputs from this cost action. The last output will be also a guideline on how to implement nature-based solutions for circular cities. And one of the first outcomes here that I would like to invite you to have a look is a special issue of one journal where we present a lot of case studies and basically state of the art in all of these areas, working areas. It's open access, so feel free to have a look. If you are interested, you are most welcome to send an email to me to be included in the newsletter and to be invited to our workshops that we have regularly online. Our workshops, we already have more than 500 people on our mailing list, and the workshops are usually attended by, I don't know, 60 to 100 people. So, you are most welcome to attend some of them. The other project that I would like to present you very briefly is a European Horizon project, Horizon 2020. It's called EDICIT-NET, and it's about edible nature-based solutions. So we are still dealing with nature-based solutions, but the focus here is on food production. However, not just food production, but food production as a result of coming from local resources. And what we are claiming here that urban food production can be a systemic solution for management of resources in cities. So, for example, using rainwater harvesting, harvesting rainwater for food production, or using nutrients from wastewater to grow food. So the focus here is on cities, and we have 10 collaborating cities, and one of them is also Montevideo. Some of the cities are engaged in setting up living labs and observing how edible solutions are, and monitoring edible solutions, and other cities are engaged by elaborating master plans where they include the edible part as in their master plans. So apart from the cities, we have also 11 NGOs and SMEs and 10 universities in the project. So how to engage in this project is basically, it's very interesting. So what we have here is a toolbox. It has a lot of tools, but let's say this is a kind of a map of food production systems, and the goal is not just to put yourself on the map, but the goal is to collaborate with others and to exchange ideas in this within this setting. So we have here solutions from other projects as well, and since this is still under development, we are including also our living labs in this map. And the idea is to have profiles of your edible solutions and to exchange a lot of information. Another interesting part of this toolbox is design and planning. So design and planning can be done on individual level, so how to design your garden in terms of use of resources, and at the city level, where you can mark a part of your city and turn it into edible and observe what is actually the impact on water consumption, on nutrient consumptions, how it impacts your sustainability indicators, and so on. So that's all from my side. You are most welcome to visit the webpage and to send an email if you are interested in getting involved more actively. And with this, just a few conclusion points. I would like to stress that there is a strong cooperation in this area of integrating nature-based solutions for, let's say, more efficient management of resources, not just water, but resources. And this kind of management of resources is reflected to the status of water bodies and to the entire basin, as a matter of fact. So with this, I would like to conclude this presentation and to thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Natasha. Again, I'm glad that this cooperation opportunity is immediately available. I see the raised hand from Alex Guerra. Alex, please, if you have a short intervention, if you're still there, you can ask. Otherwise, we will continue. Maybe come.
We can leave
Alex.
it for the end. It was just
okay.
Something to add on to Barbara's point on how to communicate with politicians, and something we are doing in Guatemala. But we can leave it to the end.
Okay, we'll come back there. Thank you very much. And I will still again reflect to you, because you have lack of financing was often mentioned in the past interventions. And the EU Commission is currently building a partnership initiative to support change in some priority areas. I will now ask Mr. Horst Pilger from the Commission to speak about Team Europe initiatives for the LAC region. We are all eager to hear what this is. Horst, can you speak?
Hello and good evening, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Horst Pilger. Great to be here. It's a bit late, so I will try to speak not too long. Can you see my screen? Can you hear me and can you see my screen?
Yes,
yes we can.
All right, okay.
Yes, we can.
I had the pleasure to be 3 years ago in Ljubljana myself at the LAC Days at the time. So we have to live now with this virtual format, but I hope I have in the future another opportunity to come back to your beautiful place. Anyway, so I would just like to say a few words about from the EU side. As you know, we are in the middle of what we call the programming phase. That means we're determining now the priorities for our cooperation globally, but also, of course, with the LAC region for the next 7 years. And so in this context, there is a new concept in this programming period, and that concept is the so-called Team Europe initiatives. And I would like to talk a little bit about where we are, what the thinking is, and how it fits together with the water concept of this session. So first of all, important to recall that until now, we had separate funding pots and legal basis for our work in the Caribbean and for our work in Latin America. So we had the Caribbean and was benefiting from the European Development Fund together with Sub-Saharan Africa and the Pacific. And we had another instrument for Latin America and for Asia. Now this will be merged. We have this new NDICI or NDICI. I'm not sure if there's a pronunciation that has prevailed, but anyway, it's the Neighborhood Cooperation Instrument. So it groups all these instruments together. And this gives us also for the first time now, indeed, the opportunity to build programs that cover Latin America and the Caribbean jointly, which hasn't been the case so far. So this is definitely good news. And we are definitely, for that reason, in the process of preparing this so-called multi-annual indicative program, which is the document that lays down the priorities for our cooperation in the future. So where are we with this? So the document itself, it exists in draft form. We had a first round of discussion with member states, but we know already that green transition will be emerging as one of these priority areas for our future cooperation. There are also 4 other areas. But when it comes to this green transition, we were sort of asking delegations to prepare Team Europe initiatives. The idea here is to say, can we have under the Team Europe brand a joint cooperation between the European Commission and what member states are trying to do in certain countries on the ground? And so our EU delegations had the task of identifying 1 or 2 that they would consider priorities in their countries and submit them to Brussels headquarters. The idea was to have the maximum of a transformative impact. So to say, not only to look at what the country needs, but also to look at what Europe can possibly provide and where Europe may have a transformative impact. So they were holding discussions on the ground, both with government, with EU member states on the ground, with whoever contacts they had, and they were trying to draw up sort of ideas and possible partnership. The idea was also to not only do a joint implementation, but also possibly do either joint financing or parallel financing. So this was this idea of this Team Europe initiatives, and that also helped us then to define the definition of these priority areas for the future cooperation. So how was this done and what is the result? So this was done in 2020, and the EU delegations did this country assessment and developed these Team Europe ideas. And a total of 40 Team Europe ideas were submitted from the region. Of the 23 delegations that we have, actually, there was none delivered from the delegation in Venezuela for political reasons, and every delegation could submit up to 2. So that's the reason why we have 40 submitted by 23 delegations, and this covers 31 of the 33 countries. And interestingly, so of the 40 submitted, 23 were in the Green Deal area. So this shows already that many delegations came to the conclusion this is where the biggest added value of EU intervention in the region is, right? Other areas were then the digital agenda, sustainable growth and jobs, regional economic integration, as well as peace, security, and human development. But all this with considerable fewer Team Europe ideas. And if we look a bit more closely at these 23 in the Green Deal area, then it can be said that some of them were very, very broad. For example, in Colombia, it is just called Green Alliance for Sustainable Development, or in Paraguay, it was simply called a Green Alliance for Paraguay. But others came up with much more specific ideas. So for example, in Peru, they really zoomed in on the idea of circular economy and sustainable cities. Fits well to what was already discussed earlier in the session. In Nicaragua, they have a specific focus on green recovery and water management and the link to resilient agriculture. And Chile is another very interesting one, because in Chile, the sole focus is on green hydrogen and the potential that that country may have in producing green hydrogen cheaply. For geographic reasons, they seem to have a very good advantage in exploiting this resource. So when I prepared for this intervention, I thought it's probably boring as hell if I go through all the 23 green area Team Europe initiatives that we have received. So let me just say that if we look from a water perspective, which were the ones submitted that have some sort of water element? And you see that on this list here. So it was Bolivia, Costa Rica, the Dominican Republic, Nicaragua, Panama, and Uruguay. Those were the ones that have some sort of focus on water in their green transition Team Europe initiative. And obviously, this is then a possible guide to the fact that these countries may, in the future 7 years, have water as a very high priority in the development of EU cooperation, right? That is not to be said that in all these countries we will indeed have Team Europe initiatives. We are just at the moment developing clear criteria to say we need, for example, 3 EU member states on the ground. May not be so easy in small countries. We may need a significant co-funding from member states. May not be so easy. But anyway, at least it gives you an orientation. That was also the idea, that it was meant to influence our thinking on what are the countries where we should go in what sectors. And so I think from that point of view, it was a useful exercise, and sort of this is this result. On top of that, we also did an exercise on regional Team Europe initiatives. Now, what is that and where does this come in? And let me start by saying, contrary to what is happening in Africa, obviously in the region of Latin America and the Caribbean, we have a situation where, for various reasons, only roughly half of the countries in the region will have a bilateral EU cooperation program. There's a lot of discussion about this, but after the end of this has emerged. So that means that many countries, countries like Trinidad, like Chile, like Panama, like Argentina, will not have a bilateral multi-annual indicative program for the next 7 years. But since many important countries are in this group, and Mexico and Brazil are in this group as well, and since at the same time we all believe that the EU Green Deal is a real priority for our cooperation with the Latin America and Caribbean regions, it follows a bit that the regional program will be the one that has to transport this priority area into the dialogue, into the cooperation with our region. And then we said, okay, if that's the case, we have actually a successful model, because over the last years we have been working on a program in Latin America that's called Euroclima, and that tries to support Latin American countries on a demand-driven basis in the development and implementation of their climate policies. And climate policies in a wider sense. So basically, when we turn back the wheel of time 5 years ago, we were sitting together just before the Brussels bomb attacks. That's why I remember so well, and it was just now 5 years. We were just lucky that we got everybody out before the bombs exploded. And we had a discussion in Brussels on which could be the areas where the countries appreciated most that we would assist them. And then 6 sectors were identified by the countries, and countries wanted more, we wanted less. But it was a good compromise. And the 6 sectors identified where Euroclima would support them also include, one of the sectors was water in an urban context. So very similar and in line with what other speakers mentioned already here today. So this is where we are already active in. Euroclima is up and running since 2017. And has now, at the moment, a focus on supporting countries through country dialogues. That means we have a number of member states agencies from France, from Spain, and from Germany, with whom we're going to the countries. We sit down, we say, our ambition is to help you with your climate policies, either their development or the implementation. How can we best bring EU expertise, public sector expertise, or consultants in? And then we try to structure our support in this way. So since this has been appreciated by Latin American countries and considered a good model of cooperation, and I could talk an hour about Euroclima, but I don't want it at this stage tonight. But we have a model that works, that delivers, and has, with a relatively modest budget, achieved relatively good results, as also confirmed by external evaluations. So we said, okay, we would like to put this on the table of discussions, and it was, as a matter of coincidence, just this morning that we had a discussion with EU member states precisely on these 2 regional Team Europe initiatives for the LAC region. The one is this, what we call the continental cooperation, based on the experiences of the Euroclima program, where we also have water as one of the components. And the other one, also interesting from a water perspective, is a sub-regional Team Europe initiatives in support of the Amazon. Now, of course, I don't want to speak about the Amazon, because everybody knows the Amazon is important. Everybody knows the Amazon is under threat. But I believe there is a situation where most people in the streets in Europe would think this is really something where also the EU should try to do something. And that means if the EU should do something, that probably means the Commission, together with interested member states. This is why we also advocated cooperation in the form of a Team Europe initiative here in favor of the Amazon. There are 4 pillars there. I mean, you see them on the slides. Basically, the idea is to protection of the Amazonian ecosystem and sustainable management of forests, biodiversity, and other natural resources, but also linked to green and inclusive growth, to sustainable livelihoods and quality services for all. And then the whole governance aspect is there, so the environmental governance to strengthen this, both in each country, but also there are some noteworthy efforts to try to do this in a group of countries. We could go into the details here, but I think it's not so crucial either. And obviously the question of sustainable finance. So these are the pillars that have been emerging as the pillars where we would like to work with EU member states. So this is where we are. We are proposing from the Commission side to work on these 2 regional Team Europe initiatives with the LAC region in the future. I should say another word on the Caribbean, also because we had this excellent presentation on the Caribbean early on. The Caribbean, even though we have now the chance to build joint programs between Latin America and the Caribbean, still has its own budget. It's a bit of contradiction, I know, but this has emerged as a sort of historic obligation for the Caribbean, having special needs of assistance, also linked to their vulnerability to climate change, also linked to their needs to adapt to climate change and the whole resilience aspect. So I think there's a good chance that we will have some of the Brazilian budget also linked to some sort of activities in this area, be it resilience, disaster risk reduction, be it also to water management. But that's also not decided yet. We're in the middle of this process. We hope that the DICI instrument will be approved either in April still or next month. And then we will have the first committee with the member states under this new instrument in autumn this year, in the European autumn, so around October. We will then have, hopefully by then, the approval of these multi-annual indicative programs, both the ones for the countries and the regional ones. And then towards the end of this year, we will hopefully have the chance to submit new programs for discussion. And we do hope there will also be one for the Amazon there, and indeed one on this continental-wide basis, where we believe we can continue to engage countries in areas linked to climate change, biodiversity, on a demand-driven basis, but with the EU added value always in mind. This is where we are, and I hope it was useful, interesting, and I hope I didn't speak too long so late in the day. Thank you very much, and best regards from Brussels. Back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Pilger. Thank you for drawing this the outline and the process of this important topic where you are right now. I am sure you will well heard, and the additional questions and context will be developed after this. Thank you very much. I will now ask the final panelist, Ms. Bojana Lipej. Her presentation, she's from BirdLife Slovenia, an NGO. Bojana, are you there?
Yes, I'm there, yes.
Perfect. Thank you for this presentation. I will ask you, fortunately, to be short in time with your presentation. It is a relevant message that you bear is your NGO manages a wetland nature reserve that has been created from a completely degraded area and is today bringing good value to the society. Thank you very much. Please have your presentation.
Yes.
Thanks.
Thank you for the word. Yes, I will be short as possible because I know it was a long day for you all. I will just share a screen with my presentation. It is very short. I have just mostly I choose some pictures to give you to input you how the Škocjanski Zatok looked like in the past, and give you some introduction from the history, what was happening there, and how our organization helped that we have now a nature reserve that I know and I hope that you already visited, and those that you didn't visit it to visit in the future. So Škocjanski Zatok Nature Reserve is the typically urban wetland. It's located on the outskirts of the city of Koper and on the area where River Rižana and Badaševica used to flow into the sea. So it is somehow the last witness to the insular past that city of Koper was once in the past. And today, that I said before, it's a typically urban wetland. It's surrounded by the city of Koper, port of Koper, the highway, railway, the suburban areas. Nevertheless, it proves that such an area could coexist with such areas that I listed before. But it wasn't the same in the past. So Škocjanski Zatok, it's this one. It's 122 hectares big, and it is divided in 3 major parts. It's located on the southwest of Slovenia, and it's the largest brackish wetland in Slovenia. So it's, as I'm showing you here, this is a freshwater part. It's about 30 hectares big, and it has wet meadows, open water areas surrounded by reed beds and thermophil shrubs. Another part is a brackish lagoon. It's about less than 90 hectares big, and it's very important because it has an area for halophytes to grow, and it has mud flats. So, and the last part, very small part, is again freshwater part. We call it Jezerce. This is just the name that we gave it to this part, and it's about 2 hectares big. So, as you can see, we are surrounded by the different kinds of urbanization, about different kind of our living on this area. And this happened in the past, that this is just a short introduction, that we have very rich fauna and flora, biodiversity is very rare. We have a lot of rare and endangered Slovenian species, and we are designated at State Nature Reserve, that it's open to the public, and we are ecologically important area and also Natura 2000 area. So these are all the designations that Slovenia and European Union they gave us to protect this area. But what is important from the Škocjanski Zatok Nature Reserve, also from the lesson from the story of Škocjanski Zatok, that local inhabitants, the people that live in the surrounding areas of our reserve, are also the protectors of this area. And this is the great success, because if you have only the legislation, you didn't do anything without people surrounding the area. And this is what it's important, and this is the story of Škocjanski Zatok, and that's why we and all my colleagues that we are coming from the non-governmental organization are very proud that we are able to manage this area for so long. So we was given the license from the ministry in 1999. So in 2019, the ministry again prolonged it for the next 10 years. So let's say we are the only non-governmental organization in Slovenia that we are having license for managing such an area. And we will be, if we succeed to manage it till 2029, we will be the only one to have it so long. But let's look in the past, how Škocjanski Zatok was created. It has an anthropogenic origin in the 1950s. So the city of Koper started to expand. And this area here is the area for the future Škocjanski Zatok Nature Reserve. So the city of Koper is here, and what is missing here is Port of Koper. So Škocjanski Zatok was created when the Port of Koper started to build. So it was created in 1956 or 1957, and that's how they created Škocjanski Zatok from Škocjan Bay. We don't translate Škocjanski Zatok to Škocjanski Inlet because we want to maintain the Slovenian name. We just translate it nature reserve or any other thing, but Slovenian and Italian name of this area has to be also maintained for the future. So when the Port of Koper was built, so they created Škocjanski Zatok, and what happened later was that this area was somehow filled with disposing material, with mud, when they built the Port of Koper, from construction material, for any kind of garbage that you can imagine. I will show you some pictures later on. But this was the area that was somehow a depositing place. And you can imagine it's somehow impossible to think that in the past, that this area so devastated, so degraded, now we have a nature reserve, and it's thriving with rich fauna and flora. And this is what is important with Škocjanski Zatok. So let's see later on in the past how Škocjanski Zatok was shrinked from the area of lagoon about more than 200 hectares big. So it shrank to less than 90 hectares. And this was the creation of Škocjanski Zatok and degradation time that brought also civil initiative and a lot of NGOs together. start thinking what to do with this area. And luckily, so those are the pictures from our past. They are the pictures from my colleagues that I must say that they devoted their lives to save the Škocjanski Zatok. And today, when they see the beauty of the whole area, they are very satisfied. But in the past, it was almost very difficult to see that this change could happen. But, you know, as we started this civil initiative, and I must say that Škocjanski Zatok was protected from bottom-up principle. And it was given a lot of lectures, a lot of different kind of presentations. We went to the ministry, to the local municipality, to the different organizations to help us and to give us information and guidance what to do that this area could be protected. And luckily, it was protected in 1998. It lasted almost 6 years when this process started, and we gained more than 7,000 signatures from the local inhabitants to protect this area. So when it was protected, the state, the situation was like you see it now. So we have to prepare a 10-year management plan. And this was done in 1999 when the Ministry for Environment gave us the license for managing this area. And we have somehow a vision that this area could be restored and transformed into nature reserve. And luckily, some of the projects, they already exist. Life Nature program in European Union that also helped us gaining the funds from the European Union, and we prepared the project. We worked on this project for 3 to 4 years. So it was the project that also combined a lot of different kind of scientists from the water management, construction workers. So many kinds, not just biologists and nature conservations, but they worked together and they prepared a project. And this project was, the project started in 2006 and 2007. And this is the first restoration done in Slovenia, and I hope the last one. So we must save our nature, not to spend so much money as it was spent in the past. So if you can see this picture before the restoration, so this is in the year 1980s. So it's the area of Škocjanski Zatok is like this that I'm showing you now. This is the freshwater part later on. This is the brackish lagoon, another freshwater, small freshwater part. And this area was transformed due to this Life Nature project to this one. So this is after the restoration. So if I can just go a little bit back. So this is the abandoned agricultural land that we transform it to the freshwater part, and the brackish lagoon that was so filled with different kind of garbage and with a great amount of mud, we translocated, we pumped out around 200,000 cubic meters different of mud, translocated in the area in the port of Koper, and we created somehow a brackish lagoon that has the central channel that we call it aorta of Škocjanski Zatok, that it's vital, very important, because it brings fresh water, a lot of oxygen, a lot of food, sea invertebrates to this area, and it prevents anoxic conditions in the brackish lagoon. So this was done in 2000.
Slide to see what it is today, because
this is what it is today. So it's not the picture from last year and maybe, but it was in 2014. What it's missing in this picture is the infrastructure for the visitors. So first, we can divide working us in this area in some, maybe we can say some milestones. So protection of this area before the degradation. So to protect from the bad influence, from the from the urbanization, then protection, and in 1999, the license that was given to the NGO, and we proved that NGO are as capable to manage such an area. And this is also a positive input for other NGOs around Slovenia and everywhere else, that NGO could manage such an area. So, and later on, restoration in 2006 and 2007, and 2015 visitor center. So we transformed the Škocjanski Zatok from degraded area. We improved in terms of biodiversity, and also we somehow represent a kind of area that brings better quality for locals in this area. So this is, a long process. It lasted more than 30 years, but it was worth. And my colleagues would say, I would go on this path again, because this is my life work. And I'm very proud that I could really leave something to my children, to my grandchildren somehow. And we are also, we must respect our colleagues that they passed away, because they also brought some time for this area, and we must somehow transport this area for our future colleagues, for our youth.
Thank you, Bojana. Can you conclude the message? It's a really nice place. Thank you very much. Final two sentences and the final slide.
Sentences, just some pictures, visitors, infrastructure for visitors, visitor center. We are equipped for people with disabilities, so we are working also in this field, and some pictures from our reserve. We are doing educational work, scientific work. So we are trying to be a part of this community near on the Slovenian coastline. So this is our visitor center, and I hope that you could have maybe in the future possibility to come to visit us. Thank you.
Thank you, Bojana. I see the passion in your eyes. Congratulations to the whole team that you have managed. I would now like to pass the final word to Mr. Ambassador of Paraguay, who asked for the word, Mr. Juan Francisco Pacetti. Are you still with us?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much. I will ask you to be brief but concise. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And also I would like to thank the organizers for including this very important issue for all the countries, and not only for Latin American countries, but also for every country in the world. I would like to do some remarks regarding the interventions, especially the issue of financial resources, the governance issue, and the cooperation. And in the case of Paraguay, I would like to say that the basin conservation is a key issue, because for us, water resources is a strategic issue. Paraguay is a landlocked country, but we are crossed by two large rivers that form one of the largest basins in the world, which is shared by 5 countries. Other basins like this, or larger than this, are the Amazon River, the Nile Basin, as well as the Danube River. So for us, for Paraguay, and just to give you an idea, Paraguay has 80% the size of France, but only 6.8 million people. But we have 600 rivers or streams. So we have one of the largest per capita amount of water in the world. But also it's important to say that 97% of the exportations of the goods, or what do we export, is based on water. That means that the water is the raw material. So that's why for Paraguay it's so important to implement sustainable policies for conserving the quality of the water. So I was listening, and the efforts that you are doing regarding the eutrophication, the study of cyanobacteria. We also have the same problem in Paraguay. and which affects a lot of tourism and affects also the water quality for distribution, for sanitation, but also we are investing on that. And I would like to say that in the last 10 years, we have sent not to Europe, especially to France and Germany. To France, we have sent more than 150 researchers to do their master as well as their thesis on the PhD thesis on several areas, but regarding always the management of natural resources. Also 45 researchers to Germany, as well as to other countries as Australia, New Zealand, USA, UK, etc. And also, one very important issue is governance, as you have said before. And for Paraguay, as we are a landlocked country, we cannot implement a national policy for conservation of the water, and without considering also the policies implemented by our neighbor countries like Brazil, Argentina, and Bolivia. And so that's why we have agreements, bilateral agreements, as well as we have also regional agreements in order to promote the conservation of aquifers, conservation of surface of fresh water or shared rivers. So finally, I want to remark that for a landlocked country like Paraguay, a successful conservation policy should be based in a wide dialogue to build a consensus policy between so many stakeholders, not only the civil society, but also the private sector. And many of our companies are part already of the Global Compact, and they have their own social responsibility and environmental responsibility programs, and they are working a lot in water conservation in our countries. So that's why I just wanted to say this, to do these remarks regarding what you have mentioned. We are very pleased to have to participate in these days, Latin American days, in order to share also some experience we have in our country. And also, I would like to send a message to the participants, to the panelists of this afternoon. We are going to contact you because we are looking for partners. We are looking for partners or research in water management, as well as in other areas regarding water. That's mean ichthyology, means also water pollution, etc. So thank you very much for this opportunity, and also finally I would like to congratulate you that because the outcome of this fantastic conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador. I think the final word, you have said it all. This is only the beginning. There's a lot left to be said, to be also for the panel, for the conference next year. In between, we shall cooperate. And with this final words, I would like to conclude today's panel. Thank you very much to all the participants, to all the panelists, to Global Water Partnership that assisted in finding such good speakers. And I wish really that the LAC conference in 2022 would bring some issues conclusive with the water management. We have stated today that this is an important topic for both included regions. For the participants that would like to also follow up the conference tomorrow, the activities start at 4 p.m. Central European Time. Thank you, everybody, and wish you the good remaining day and an enjoyable evening. Thank you and goodbye.